So, welcome to the Sacred Wheels Speaker Series. I'm your host, Allison Carr. So, this is a monthly series where we talk to artists, visionaries, and change makers about how we can create a world of peace, justice, and beauty. You can find more of these episodes at my website, allisoncarr.net, on YouTube, or as podcasts on iTunes or Google Play, listed as the Sacred Wheel Podcast. This is a sister program of my Sacred Wheel Immersion, where students take a vow to live their lives as an act of magic as we follow the pagan wheel of the year. So this month we find ourselves late August, and we're right halfway between the holiday of Lammas and the fall equinox. And this is normally a time where I am talking all about the themes of receiving and relaxing and reaping the benefits of what you've sowed all year. And we are going to talk about that a little bit today. But there's a very different kind of harvest that I've noticed that we as a nation are starting to reap. I don't want to say benefits of because it's not so great. And that is the harvest of our legacy of white supremacy. So I'm very excited today to introduce to you Celia Ward-Wallace, who has joined us. She is an author, community leader, inspirational speaker, certified life coach, and is based in LA, where she facilitates live and virtual events, trainings, as well as life, executive, and executive coach certification courses. Welcome, Celia. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be with you. And I love the conversation about receiving. I also love the conversation about white privilege and white supremacy. So we're off to a good one here.
Yeah. Thank you. So do you want to give us a little background on you and your story and how you came to do what you do?
Of course. So I'm sure like everybody watching and listening, we all have these amazing stories. There's so many twists and turns, and we also do so many things and are probably very multi-passionate. So I can go in a lot of directions with what I share today, but for the sake of time and keeping the lens fairly tight on our topic today, I can just tell you, I grew up in Los Angeles. I am a Los Angelino, and I've been here my whole life. I just turned 40 years old, so I've been here since the beginning. And I'm sure like many of your followers I sort of believe you choose who you are born to. Mm-hmm. So I was born to two revolutionary parents, like literally revolutionary parents. They are people who at 20 years of age decided to dedicate their lives to social justice. And my father is Jewish, and he was growing up in New York. And when he was going to college at Cornell, it was in the midst of the civil rights movement. And so he started to get really involved, and he began to work with the Congress of Racial Equality in Harlem, and was going door to door to organize people to get involved and come out for demonstrations and for different initiatives. Simultaneously, my mother was living in Berkeley, or going to school in Berkeley, and she was like on the forefront of the feminist movement and the women's rights movement, and was living in communes, and was on the spectrum, doing all kinds of interesting things that was happening then. So I was a product of these two people who are extremely different, yet as they stay to this day, and they have 40 plus years married now, that the two things they always had in common were sex and politics. So they still have a very passionate relationship into their 70s, and they still are in their 70s actively doing social justice work as their full-time work. And so while a lot of people came out of the 60s generation and got really fired up, and then it sort of died down when they got seduced by capitalism, my parents have always been against all of that. And even though they had a ton of privilege, my mom coming from a white European background, and my father Eastern European, and being both American citizens and raised by middle-class educated parents, they could have just gone the route of everybody else to just get the job and do what we do, but because in their hearts they just felt like their lives had a greater purpose, they, for the last 45 years, my father founded a very significant nonprofit that's an international nonprofit, and so that's the Labor Community Strategy Center, and my mother has been helping build all of that with doing a lot of the writing, the periodicals, the editorials, everything they produce is in 3 languages. So English,
Wow.
Korean, and Spanish. And my mother is really the theoretical side. So she's the one always analyzing everything and doing cross comparison of all of the different theories on the planet of, feminism and patriarchy. My dad is usually sort of the outward facing, literal, hit the streets organizer. So the context of going into depth about my parents is just to say, these are the 2 parents that I was born into.
Yeah.
Sort of chose on this planet for this journey here. And growing up, they were part of a communist organization, and there was a co-op, and there were people who were of all different ethnicities, who were united in a common cause, and they would literally almost meet every single day and have these different initiatives and projects they're working on, and then they would bring all their kids. And, in these kind of organizations, they believe everything's egalitarian. So every single role is valuable. And so the person who's in charge of childcare is just as important as the person who's leading the meeting. And so integrating childcare and, really making it a family-oriented environment was something that was, basically a principle of what they believed in. So I grew up in this sort of utopian community. Although I was very aware, I was walking with a girlfriend today and I was saying, I am obviously not a woman of color. However, since I've grown up around predominantly all people of color my entire life, and learned about, inequity from day one, something that's very unusual and unique about me is I sort of see the world through the lens of a woman of color. So even though I am very aware of my privilege of being blonde and white and European and American and heterosexual and all these different things, I also am almost like able to code switch because I can be in that environment and see it from the inside, but I can also be on the outside and see like, whoa, there's a lot of stuff going on out there. So my throat is starting to close up and I feel like I need to get some water. So maybe you can respond and I'll just run and get that.
Yeah. I'm just so glad that you mentioned this idea of being a bridge walker and also the idea of perspective, because that's something I want to talk about. There's a couple places that I want to slip in here. But I think it's really important, this idea of noticing our own perspective, noticing where we come from, and also noticing what our privileges are and what we bring to the table. So I want to start by talking about this idea of white supremacy. And, we're just coming off the heels of Charlottesville. There's still rallies going on all over the nation. There was a huge one in Berkeley yesterday. I feel like as a nation, it's like we've picked up the rock and we're looking at the shadow side of what's been going on underneath the surface and not being talked about for centuries, and I feel like all this stuff is finally coming up and out. Just from your perspective, from how you were raised, from the people you came from the work you do, what do you think is the most important battle we're facing in this struggle? Nothing, just a light question to get us started.
Light little one. Let's begin there. Let me see. Well, I think, and hopefully, I know all of your followers are spiritual, so they would say, "Oh, your throat chakra is closing up." What does that mean? But I actually have that happen quite a bit. So
do you?
Let's send some energy work to my throat.
Yeah.
Release the constriction of these conversations. So assuming my voice will cooperate with us.
Okay.
I mean, I would say always the number one biggest issue is capitalism.
Yeah.
So, and that is by far the biggest, elephant in the room that nobody really wants to look at. We've created all alternative forms of, government as the boogeyman. So, we've just been told like, oh, capitalism is the way to be and the American dream is alive and well. And if only these people of color, these poor people would just get their acts together and be like everybody else, we could just get on with having this beautiful country that we all want to live in. When in reality, the structures that are in place in our society were developed specifically to create divisions between all of us, and to create this widening divide that we're suffering with right now. And so
Yeah.
the more and more and more that this continues to go on, and we continue to be stripped of our power and our voice and our ability to be part of the government, be part of the democratic process, have the desire to vote, have politicians who are advocating for us, who have any sense of justice or equality. These are the things that we're going to continue to face. So I think that it's a much bigger structural issue that people don't really want to look at, but I think that is where to begin for sure.
I'm so glad you said that, though, because we're both business owners, right? So we're involved in a capitalist system. And I know, just from knowing you and knowing your, the image you present, it's not an image of poverty, right? So it's not preaching poverty as the answer. So how does that fit? How do we fit? What is the vision, or what is the vision you are working for?
I am constantly butting up against this issue. And I think that it's much more a fabric of who I am from within. So I'm constantly debating this with myself of, am I in contradiction? Am I selling out? Am I representing, am I in alignment with my values? And also that I feel like I'm here on the planet, because I'm continually telling myself, yes, you're doing amazing work. And, we haven't even talked about my work yet, but just to say, 90% of my clientele is women of color. And so the fact that the image that I portray is not a, pull yourself up by the bootstraps and, just make a little bit of money. It's no, let's figure out how to find your purpose and build something around that and get out there and make a difference in the world. So I am a big thinker, and what I represent is the possibility of what it could look like to create a really magical, beautiful, big life aligned with your values. However, for me, I am day in and day out holding myself up to that and really saying, how can you not get lost in all of this? How can you really be the voice of something different? And so that's what I've tried to do for myself within the context of being an entrepreneur. To say, remember why you're doing this, and that, I think that's where the spirituality aspect comes in. Is for me, I feel like I have a purpose on the planet. I was created here and put here by God, and that I'm meant to be doing what I'm meant to be doing, even if I don't even know what it is, right? And so each day it's sort of God, lead me, show me the way. Who am I meant to serve? How am I meant to show up today? And so the more that I'm more clear of, there is a big purpose for your life. You may not know what it is, but you need to make sure that what you're doing is not self-serving, but is serving to that greater mission. And then, can you find joy in it? Can you enjoy being recognized for your work, or can you enjoy making great money, and being, both financially abundantly successful, and also be doing amazing work in the world? I think all of that is possible. However, I see myself as somebody was literally created to break down paradigms, and also to be an industry disruptor. So I really have taken my role in the industry of entrepreneurship, or in coaching, or in women's online business, literally to make sure that my brand and what it represents is to say, hey, if you want to work with me, what we're talking about here is how are we going to, do the work we're here on the planet to do, and shift the paradigm and change the structures that are in place. And so it's not just want to make some more money or want to find something that makes you happy in life. All of that is good. I'm not judging people, but for me, I realize, you've gone through a lot. You have a lot of insider knowledge and wisdom at your disposal. You have a lot of people looking to you for guidance, and you need to use your gifts for the highest good of the planet. And so that's a lot of what I'm always talking about, is how are we helping humanity, not just helping ourselves. And I think obviously the first step is how do I get myself out of this junked up life that somehow I landed in, which again, I would say is not only the result of capitalism, but also patriarchy, and colonization, of the planet and resources and people. So part of what my work is trying to say is yes, let's talk about being an entrepreneur. Yes, you should have a more fulfilling life. Yes, you should have purpose and meaning, But if we don't all break out of our little bubbles of just thinking about ourselves and what we want for our lives, we're missing the whole picture. Like we're literally missing the whole picture as how as a collective we can organize and, create some sort of shared vision to move forward a shift on the planet. And you and a lot of others know a lot more about this than I do, but I do believe that it can be as simple as small changes that together will amass major change on the planet. I just believe in having faith. So I just believe in a God like that, that's like, hey, when I start to see everybody starting to get it together and starting to make these changes, I'm going to start supporting them. I'm going to start showing them that you're in the right direction.
Yeah.
However, when you talk about leading into the darkness and, sort of reaping the harvest of, these really hundreds of thousands of years of oppression of people and our planet. Yeah, we're in the muck now, so like everybody's freaking out like as if this just happened overnight. And part of my frustration, and I know my parents' frustration, a lot of people who have been in this work for a long time, is like, this has been going on for a really long time. And I get that you might just right now be waking up to it. However, if you really care, you got to start looking at history. You got to start challenging the structures that are in place. You got to start challenging the ideals that we think as normal. We got to start looking at the American dream and what is that and why do we want that and what is the impact of chasing American dream on the rest of the world? And why are there countries in the world that hate us so much and that we think our answer to that is just let's just go kill them all? It's like grow up just thinking, oh, I just hate those people over there. There's a reason they hate us. So like, what have we done karmically, and with our action, with our powerhouse of being America, to make so many enemies around the world? And, what would it look like to be led by leadership that, focuses on compassion and acceptance and tolerance and, saving our, like, putting into our resources and living collectively, like all of these things. As you can see, I get very excited. So I can wrap it with this. Yeah.
I just think that piece you talked about too, of how you were brought up with your parents, creating this environment where like everybody's contribution is equal. I feel like that's such a valuable part of it. And like when I try to talk to my students about, when we talk about life purpose, a lot of times we think it's like this like mission to save the world. And your life purpose is just you showing up and bringing your gifts, right? And that might be childcare. And that might be dishwashing, like it might be like caring for people and making delicious food. There's like, we have this hierarchy that we've created that I think is part of the patriarchy, where like the big shiny, visible people leading at the top get all the props. And then like there's a myriad of support work that never gets any glory,
Yeah, I mean, none of these potential political systems are necessarily perfect, right? There's holes in all of them. And so I'm not here to say, oh, socialism, that's the way, or patriarchal society, that's the way. I don't honestly have the answer. Part of what I'm interested in is like reimagining what it could be, with people who want to create a shared vision of something new or want to try new things. But yes, a lot of those other ways of looking at the world are based on everybody's role is valuable. I mean, we still need people to sweep the streets, right? We still need some level of law enforcement or something. We don't know. What could that look like if we never had law enforcement? I don't know. Maybe there's some other job that we need somebody to be doing, right? But all of these different jobs, teachers, nurses, we need all of these things in a society. However, we don't value them equally. We don't pay them equally. And like you said, we create a hierarchy. We also don't value, and because I know you're working on a wheel, we also don't value like a true wheel of life, right? So we don't raise our children to think like, I'm raising my children to think like, yeah, it's great to have a job. It's great to make money. And I really want you to find something you love and that's a good contribution to the world. Like, let's figure out what that's going to be. But it's also just as important to, get exercise and be like physical and like be in your body and focus on health. It's just as important to have a spiritual connection. It's just as important to be in nature somehow. It's just as important to, be in a form of leadership. Like there's all these different aspects of our life that So like the majority of people, especially in America and some of the first world countries, we have atrophied ourselves in all of these different aspects and just put the focus on the development of wealth.
Yeah.
And the reality is that it's not really there for all of us, yet we've been told if we just keep working harder and longer, we can make more money and we're going to be happier. And what we're seeing is an epidemic of people in massive amounts of debt, extremely depressed and anxious, you know, having no fulfillment. And in terms of my work, you know, I'm getting these women 35, 45, 55, 65 who are saying, holy crap, like I did all the things I was supposed to do. Like, got the job, I got the husband, I got the house, I got the cars, I had the kids, I did everything. I'm $100,000 in debt, and I'm up now and realizing I feel like I missed the whole picture. Like I'm so far off from any sense of happiness, any sense of fulfillment, and like now what, you know? So it's fascinating. It's a very interesting time, and I think this is a great conversation to have.
Yeah, yeah. Let's segue then. Let's talk a little bit more about what you do. I want to circle back around to this, but you keep mentioning it, and I want to make sure that listeners know what it is you do.
Yeah. So initially I started to really focus, well, initially when in terms of my own story, the quick version of that is I did all those things I just said that most people do. Got the job, got the education, got the husband, did the thing, got the good thing, thought it was all good. Real estate market crash came, recession came. So my husband and I, who were both working city jobs with the pension and the benefits and all that, that was secure. Yet our mom and pop real estate business that we had grown into a multi-million-dollar business completely crashed. And so we went from on paper, you know, being multimillionaires to now being paupers again. And there's much more twists and turns in terms of how dark it got for us. Point being is that through that is when I really, even though my parents were amazing and raised me with such a sense of values and really spiritual concepts, both of them were atheists. So I was raised to question religion, question spirituality, and really look at it as a potential tool of oppression, which I'm sure some of your listeners know what I'm talking about with that.
Yeah.
But so all of that to say is that I had no sense of connection to God or spirituality or anything. And it was through sort of my life falling apart, everything hitting the fan, that I was like, okay, for once and for all, this woman who thinks she can control everything is realizing she just can't do it alone. I need some support. How do I do this? And so when I get really passionate about a new topic, I just research the heck out of it. So I just researched all of the forms of religion, all the forms of spirituality. And I kept picking these little pieces. Oh, I like that. Oh, I like that. And I would practice it. And through the practicing of it over about 6-month period of time, I started to come up with sort of my own formula of my relationship to God and spirituality. And like the light bulb went on and I was like, ooh, I have that thing called faith and I have that connection and I can feel it. And I, all of a sudden, really all the things I had been saying about I'm good enough and I have a purpose, like I did believe that, but I didn't quite put it together with more of a spiritual basis. That happened. And so through that, I started being on the, like literally everywhere I would go, at the supermarket, at the soccer game, just anybody I would talk to, I'd just be like, hey, you know what, whatever you're going through, just trust that everything's gonna be fine. You know, look for the signs, look for your way out, make sure you're taking care of yourself, you know, make sure you're connecting, because if you connect, you're gonna see what the next step is, you know. And I realized like, wow, you've never been this passionate about anything in your life. You've always loved advocating for people and supporting people, but here you actually are starting to teach people how to transform their lives in like real time. I found out that there was this thing called the coaching world, right? Life coaching, business coaching. I got certified, and that was in 2010. And since then, I worked with one company training coaches for about 4 years. And then I started my own school to start coaching people because I had my own philosophy and my own beliefs and everything. And so now, years later, I've worked with thousands of women who, first of all, wanted to connect with something greater than themselves, wanted to tune back into spirituality or find it in the first place, and also find it within them, right? Because it's not external, that it's actually within. So that's the first step. And then from there, they want to find their purpose. They want to find more meaning. So helping them figure out, what does that look like? Is that staying in corporate America? Is that starting your own business? Is that doing nonprofit work? It can look so many different things. Then from there, people who are really jazzed and want to become an entrepreneur, I was like, okay, I got to create something for them. So then I went into creating what's sort of like my signature program called the Superfly program, which is actually evolving. I'm not going to announce yet the cool changes that are coming starting in January, but I've been doing this now for 3 years and I have about 200 graduates, and it's basically like a boot camp immersion course to teach you everything you need to know about starting a business, but from a perspective of a foundation in spirituality and self-care. And then my ladies kept going. So I just keep going with them. And this is something I teach in business, is if you have these loyal clients and they want you and they want to learn from you, you keep figuring out what's next for them and how you can serve them. And then they will want to buy from you if you can create it. And so a lot of my students then said, I want to get into coaching like you. How do I do that? And that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to create my own method, my own system, and start training future leaders into the coaching industry. So that's sort of what I do, is take women wherever they are at life, give them the support and the accountability and sort of the teaching that they need there so that they can step into greater forms of power. And the goal being is to keep pushing them out further and further. So even if it's at home or in their community or at work, that they are a beacon of light, that they're a beacon of hope, and that they are starting to have enough awareness to realize that they can be a part of making a change on the planet. That's my jam.
Yeah. What I love, and part of the reason I was so excited to talk to you too, is that the coaching industry and the online entrepreneur industry can be so whitewashed. Right. It can be it's like white women marketing to white women. Right. And like, that's not the base of what you're doing. Yeah. Yeah. So, but I feel like it's important, white woman to white woman, to have this talk about how white women are complicit in racism, in a very particular and unique way. Like, can we talk about that a teeny bit?
Yeah, well, I think that it's something, even me with the street cred that I have, right? So I live in South Central Los Angeles by choice. I've lived here for almost 20 years now. I've grown up in a predominantly Black and brown environment. I've gone to 500 demonstrations, all those stats that would say I'm in the club, right? I have a personal relationship with Patrice Colliers, who's the founder of Black Lives Matter. So I am in the network, but I'm still a white woman, and so this is something that is very hard, I think, for good white people to get and be okay with it. And it is hard because for me, there's a part of me that's like, oh, I'm ready to lead the charge. Like, how can I get up there with you guys and help lead? Because I'm a natural born leader and I pay my dues and I know the issues and I'm in the community. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, but you are a white woman. It just is. It's just a fact of the matter. You are a white woman. So therefore, what that means is Black and brown, women of all different sexual orientations, like all of the different kinds of minorities that exist. They're like, we've been doing this work forever. Right? This is not day one for us. This is not century one for us. Like we have been oppressed since day one, since the day that y'all landed on the shores of Africa and stole us from our beaches, and from the days that everybody landed here and you're putting people in camps or you're putting people into slavery or you're oppressing women. But yes, white women were a part of that. And yes, white women have gone through a lot. But it's just not the same. And so, and I don't have all the answers. I mean, when you and I were emailing and I was looking at what you want to talk about, I was thinking like, wow, it's really interesting because I really don't have all the answers. And my sister, Melinda, who's also an outward facing, person, she has a big following for her own work around body positivity and women's freedom and everything. She and I talk a lot because we're like, holy crap, like what role do we play in all of this? Like we want to play a role. We're not sure of the role. And like, I've taken classes, I've been talking to people, I've been really trying to figure out where do I fit in at this time in history so that I can play the appropriate role. And I haven't even figured it out. All I know is that I'm keep asking the questions. I'm going to keep asking the people that are leading the charge, where would you like me to go? How would you like me to support? You know what I do what can I do to have your back, and sort of allow myself to follow the leaders instead of trying to lead.
Yeah.
Similarly, I mean, like I think you are on my newsletter. For example, my coaching academy is essentially open right now. Like I'm just beginning a launch, but I was like, shit, I can't send out that email about, hey, sign up for the coaching academy. Well, what just happened in Charlottesville?
Yeah.
Like, I just can't bring myself to not be talking about what's happening in Charlottesville, but say, go sign up for my $3,000 coach certification program. Like, it's out of an integrity for me. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what is the role that I can play? And and again, there'd probably be a lot of criticism from other people about the role that I have played or chose to play. But for me, what felt right is, okay, I'm going to send an email to my list and I'm just going to say, we cannot stand for this. Is non-negotiable. If you ever were looking for a reason to be speaking up, this is the number one reason to speak up. This seems extremely literally black and white, and we need to be on the side of the right fight here and doing what we need to do. And if you want to support organizations that are on the ground doing the work right now, here's 3 ways that I know for sure that your support will help, right? And so it's more, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, there's tons of people that have differing opinions. I feel like the role is for us to figure out how to support the people who are doing the work, right? Yeah. And they may say, hey, we need bodies. So you're like, okay, I'm going to call on my sister friends and get 100 people to come out to the rally. They may say, we need people making copies. Okay, how can I make copies? They may say, we need to raise funds. I don't know, mm-hmm. I'm not the leader of those organizations. Mm-hmm. And some of them are intentionally not really desiring white members.
Yeah.
And so that's the whole interesting dynamic too, that I've had to sort of come to terms with, like, okay, I guess some of these are not multiracial, multicultural coalitions, but I don't take that to go like, oh, they're against me, mm-hmm. or I'm trying to do something good and they're shutting me down. It's like that whole manipulation of the personalization of the entire thing of like, well, now I'm a feminist, like, okay, get in fucking line. Like, there have been people being calling themselves feminists, doing feminist work for literally thousands of years. Where the fuck were you? You weren't there. Yeah. You were being in your suburb little home, going to play dates and all that kind of stuff. Now, finally, you got fired up because of Hillary. Like, is it really Hillary? And Hillary, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
But, it's like, I don't know that she's the beacon of like who we should be like. She's going to change our whole world. No, she's a woman. Yes. Right. So it's good to have a woman. But other than that, I don't think, honestly, that many people agreed with her policies.
Yeah. So
it's like, what are we getting fired up for? And for women who are maybe new to all of this, white women who are new to all of this work, and have all the, so-called credibility like I do, it's even more important that you just my main thing would say, make the commitment to wake up, mm-hmm. as they would say, stay woke, mm-hmm. stay in the game, and pay attention to ways that you can support. Pay attention to ways you can continue having the conversations, right? Because that's part of it. White people bringing up difficult conversations with other white people.
Yep.
But a lot of people would argue that white people can't change white people. It needs to be people of color that can change white people, so there's different philosophies. I feel like the main thing is for you to keep trying to do something, mm-hmm. and keep looking to other people for the guidance, mm-hmm. and not being like, I'm going to be the face of like, I'm on a tangent here, but I just have to say, like, in our industry of online entrepreneurs, as we know who they are, the sort of top dogs, mm-hmm. and mostly all white women. Mm-hmm. And then when they come out with these initiatives and things that all of a sudden now, we got to have community hall meetings, mm-hmm. and we have a nonprofit and we're doing this. And I'm like, I mean, good for you, but why wouldn't you just put your weight behind some other organization that's been doing this for 100 years? Like, why do you need to be the face now of some big philanthropy arm of issues you don't even know anything about?
Yep.
But There's people who this is what they do full time. You know, you are a businesswoman. There's people who are grassroots organizers. That's what they do for a living. Why don't we defer to them and figure out how to support their organizations instead of us feeling like, let me get some more attention and glory for what a great person I am because I'm a good white person. Mm-hmm. So anyways, that's my rant on that.
Yeah. No, thank you. So I'm going to distill a couple things I heard too, because there might be a number of white women who are new to this, coming to this conversation. And there's a couple things I heard from you that I think are important to point out. So one, not centering yourself, right? As a white person, like amplifying the voices of people of color around you rather than trying to center yourself. Two, not taking offense when people of color don't want your involvement. Like it's not about you. There was one more really important one that I heard and it's totally left me.
It's all good. It'll come back if it's meant to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing about it is, it is, all of this is difficult, confusing, messy, all of that. The main thing is to, like I said, stay in the game, like stay, you know, because we don't really know what everybody's role is supposed to be, but we know that we need everybody to be a part of it. You know, we need everybody to be a part of it. And I think the main thing is to elevate the voices of the people who are leading the movements and figuring out how you can support them and really clearly standing on the side of what is blatantly wrong. I mean, I just feel like, you know, this whole Black Lives Matter, all lives matter, you know, thing is just like, people, can we not get the concept? Nobody ever said all lives don't matter. If we want to just, and again, I'm not the person that probably should be explaining this, but from what I know, Black Lives Matter was created as a personal affirmation for Black people to be saying to themselves, Black lives do matter. Black lives matter. My life matters, right? Because so much in the world is saying, guess what? You don't. Right? You just don't. And you haven't for a long time. And we just sort of hope you die is basically what the message has been. Can you just all kill each other and just float off into the, you know, like we don't really need you on the planet anymore is the way most Black people feel the world feels about them. And so Black Lives Matter was created as a soul cry for themselves to lift themselves up. And then, yes, it caught on and everybody, you know, was like, yes, that's an amazing thing to say. But it wasn't saying, and therefore your life doesn't matter, or therefore my life is more important than yours. It's saying like, hey, guess what? I'm here in the room. I matter too. Like, how many times do I need to sit at a table or be in a store and feel like I don't matter, that you don't even see me, right? There's a great book by Ralph Ellison about,
Invisible Man. Yeah.
You know, and it's like, what does it feel like? You know, I'm married to a Black man, and you know, I can't tell you how many times I've been with him in a predominantly white environment and just me having the like heightened awareness of consciousness of God. This must feel so weird to just be walking around here and either to feel like there's hypersensitivity towards you because you're a Black man and people have all these assumptions or fears or whatever, or the opposite of like not being seen at all. You know, so I think that it's these kind of things where it is complex. It is rooted in thousands of years of history. There's a lot of different perspectives on it. And so therefore, because it's so complex, we can't disengage. We can't say, oh, that's their issue. And that's where the privilege comes in, right? Because it's easy to say that's their issue and it's too complicated. And I might say the wrong thing and I don't know what I'm doing and I'm probably gonna get yelled at and, you know, whatever. I'll help them. I'll send some money and I'm just gonna go back to my universe over here. That's the exact prime example of privilege, is the fact that you can go back to regular life. You can choose, am I going to have the conversation? Am I not going to have the conversation? That's where we're like, it's at the crux of just day-to-day life where we can choose. I can't as much because I have daughters who are Black women and I have a Black husband, so I'm very immersed in the culture. I can't necessarily choose to not do some of the things, but I can ride around in my car on my own and feel a lot different than I do when I'm with my family in the car, right? And it's just an awareness. So these are things, just the continuing conversation. And you've been so great at this, Allison, and some of our other sisters. I know I tend to every so often get fired up and post something that's a little edgy, that gets, you know, both sides of the party coming in with their opinions. So you've
Mm-hmm.
been very gracious to offer over time such thoughtful and supportive comments. And man, these conversations, it blows my mind to see how sophisticated a lot of people are starting to get with really starting to do the research and starting to get involved.
Yeah.
And, the white women conversation is really, it's a whole fascinating thing in itself.
Yeah. 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 I feel like we just got a lot of learning to do, like that's been my check lately, is just being like, I got so much to learn. I have so much to learn, and it's time to get going. Like I don't get to say anymore, oh, I didn't know, I'm so sorry. I mean, yes, there's things we don't know, but we got to learn. Like we got to start learning.
And there's so many different things we can do. And, a lot of my white girlfriends, which for a long time I did not have that many white girlfriends, but getting into online entrepreneurship and the coaching space, there is still the class divide.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been something that I've been so aware of, and that I have been really sort of systematically going at breaking down.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll allow me to just riff on this
yes.
here that I think is important. So I've made a lot of good white girlfriends because of being in the online entrepreneurship space and coaching. There's a lot of them there, and you start to weed through everybody, and you're nice to everybody, but you start to see, okay, I really like her. That's somebody that I can share, common beliefs with or common work with. And so I've ended up having a group of really great white women girlfriends in addition to everybody else. And they have been so gracious to come to me, which again, I am not the expert, but I might know a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
They come to me to say things like, I realize I have an all white community. Like my whole, either where I live is all white, or my clients are all white, and then I'm hanging out with you and hanging out in the Superfly sisterhood and the community. And I see you just got every single kind of different person in there. And I can't figure out, like, how did you do that? How am I being so lily white over here? And so we started to think about, like, okay, how can we literally intentionally start to create more opportunities, create more exposure, bring, more diverse voices in, which I know you're very interested in.
Mm-hmm.
But in my own work, with my own business, the number one thing is that this has not been conscious, is just because of the way I was raised and because of my comfortability and because of my awareness of sort of the social dynamic. When I speak and do videos, or when I talk, you go to my website or whatever you see, it's just as much about my voice and my views and my world perspective as it is about my offerings and my products and my whatever. And in addition, all of my products, if you go to the sales pages and you read what it's about, it's like, yeah, you're going to start your business, but it's also about, okay, we are talking about social justice, or we are talking about leveling the playing field, right? Mm-hmm. And so a lot of what I talk about is how do we, and this is where I'm starting to transition into this next year of my business, super excited, is how can I start to break down the paradigms that exist within the coaching and entrepreneurship space, and essentially collectivize, democratize, socialize access to becoming entrepreneurship, access to becoming a coach, also access to working with coaches. Mm-hmm. Where this has become now such a white, affluent industry, which I really feel is all BS. I really feel like 99% of the people we're seeing on all of your listeners are seeing online, I just want to tell them, are not really doing what they say they're going to do. All of them stand in front of airplanes and sports cars and suits and stuff, is all false advertisement. And so I simultaneously feel like they are preying upon, in particular, lower income people, or people who are in transition or having hardship, that are looking at that and saying, I want what they have. Mm-hmm. And they say, I can teach you how to get what I've got, just pay me whatever, and then I'll teach you how to tell other people to get what you got. Mm-hmm. And we'll all keep doing that in a pyramid scheme. And so I feel like the industry is potentially ripe for some real implosion or some restructuring, which I'm actually excited about. And I think that I will survive and you will too. People who are doing really meaningful work and have clients who are coming out the back end, having literal transformations, not just taught how to create a business plan. Like here's a business in a box, just do what I do. Like that's not cool. So anyways, I'm going on and on about that, but that's actually the shift I'm making even more overtly now in my work, is bringing that message out to the world of how can we create more equal access to all of these opportunities? Does everything need to be multiple thousands of dollars? And you need to be in the club to find out about it. If you do any of my programs, one thing that I've done that has really been able to create equal access is to come up with a 12 monthly payment plan, where all of my peers were just like, you're crazy. Like, why would you do that? People aren't going to pay you. Like if your programs are only 2 or 3 months, but you're letting people pay it over a full year, like, well, that's crazy. But to me, I feel like I don't need to lower my prices. My prices are equal to what I'm offering. I'm offering essentially an alternative MBA. So is it worth $3,000? Yes. But should anybody who wants to get that opportunity, that's a working person, have a way in? Yes. And how can I do that? So that's about deconstructing some of my privilege and figuring out, okay, how can I meet them where they're at? And it's been tremendously successful for me. It's just, these are the kind of things that I'm looking for people to start thinking about in their day-to-day life, even if they're not entrepreneurs, is just, these are the structures that I live in, but I don't have to subscribe to them. I don't have to agree to them. I can disrupt them. I can break them down. I can form them in new ways. And that, I think, is where we need to go in terms of maybe some of the good white women who want to make change, is starting to just look around your own personal environment and see, are there any structures in place? Are there any assumptions in place that are continuing to prop up your privilege, that somehow by deconstructing or reconfiguring, you can broaden your net, you can broaden your circle, you can bring some people into your world that you might not have just reached out and got. But now if you think about it, you're like, actually, I have some friends over here that I haven't talked to since high school, or I have some family members that are doing some cool things that I haven't engaged with, and just kind of stuff is small stuff, but I think it all adds up.
Yep. I think that's so vital. And like one of the pieces I've been meditating on a lot around all of this, again, like you, I don't have the answer, and I don't necessarily think that I'm supposed to have the answer. Actually, I think that, again, as white women, or as white people, like our job right now is to kind of shut up and support. I mean, yes, we're out there bringing our gifts, and yes, we have a role to play, but I don't think that we're going to come in and solve this whole issue. That's white supremacy acting again. And one of the pieces that I've been working with, just because my basis is a healer, is this idea that your biggest wound is your greatest gift, right? So if we extrapolate that out, the people who are told by our current system that they are the most worthless are actually the people we need the most, because they have the medicine, right? They have the gift. So how do we then start creating structures where we're building those bridges? And right now, what I see a lot, even in the healing field, is this sort of idea of well, if people don't have the money, they don't have the commitment, right? If people don't have the money, they're just not willing to commit, or, it's just this falsity placed on top. And I'm like, no, that actually can't be the way we do things. We can't just equate money with commitment, and say that people that don't have the money aren't committed, because there's lots of real structural reasons why people might not have the money. And actually, those are the people we need the most, right? Those are the people who have the medicine that we need. They're the ones who are going to solve this. We're not.
And they're the most in touch with the issues we're having, that people are facing on the planet, like you're saying. And every time I offer my programs, I don't even pick a number. I just know that any woman that crosses my path that truly is in need, and that my heart is telling me they're meant to be in my program, I scholarship them. I fully scholarship them. And so I did, the last time I did the Superfly program, and this is the thing, 2 women, both of these women literally reached out to me. And so it's something maybe potentially I need to put up some more walls, but I'm very accessible. So people come find me on Facebook and stuff. And so last year, when Mike Brown was shot, and everything was going down in Ferguson and everything, I just started doing a live stream. And it was one of those things like, possibly now I might not do it, because I think even then I had a little bit more sense of like entitlement of being able to have something to say. Even though I got on live stream and didn't, and said, I don't know exactly what I'm saying, except for that I'm devastated by this and that we have to figure out what to do. But I ended up doing like an hour-long live stream where I was crying, and so it got circulated, right? It sort of went viral. And in general, the response was really positive, but it went viral. And so I had this one woman contact me who saw the video, and she sent me a private message, and she just said, you don't know who I am. I don't know who you are. I just saw your video, but I've never seen a white person come across like they really want to help. And let me tell you my story. I have these 3 boys. I'm a single mom. I'm low income. I'm scared every day when they walk out of the house. I've tried to do everything I can to protect them. These are the constrictions I'm having with employment. This is my issues that I'm overcoming and all this stuff. And so then at that time, she wasn't in our community. She just contacted me privately. I took that message and I popped it into our private Superfly program group. And I just said, ladies, like, what can we do for her? And like everybody swarmed in. We had all these ideas. And mainly it was people just like, wow, it's important for me to hear this woman's story. Flash forward the next time Superfly was offered, I had still kept in touch with her. I just contacted her and I was like, look, the program's starting. You need to be in it. You got a 100% scholarship, but these are the call dates. You need to tell me you can be to all of them. And you're willing to completely show up. And she said, absolutely, I'm in. A second woman, I won't go into her whole story, except to say, she just contacted me. I don't know if she got on my mailing list or something. And she was like, I got one of your emails and it said, no woman left behind. And that's usually what I say something like, I'm leveling the playing field, no woman left behind. If you're not joining because of money, you need to contact me and let me know. And I'm willing to be flexible. And so she sent me a Facebook message and she's like, I know you don't know me. I've been following you. I'm in a shelter. This is my situation, but I am a coach. I already created content, but I lost all my money. I had this whole story. And I just could tell, like, I'm like, she's a superstar. She's a rock star, but she's in a terrible situation. She's living in a shelter. So she came into the program. These 2 women came in this last time through. And just to speak to the people who think, people who don't pay or don't have the money aren't going to be as committed. They were they were the rock stars of the class. Like, if you could have valedictorians, like, they were fully committed. Last class, we did a social good initiative where we wanted to raise money within our community for the sisters who need money in the community. So we raised, I think we had 50 people that donated money, and we raised over $2,500. And we're able to give out little microloans for people who had specific need. And this one of the women, the woman that contacted me about the Black Lives Matter situation, she was the one that she said, if I could do anything with my life, I would help give money out to people, like help solve problems for people. And so she was one who led the initiative on what we call the Superfly Sisterhood Scholarship. And the other woman was like the most involved, rock star coach ever. She's going to go on and take the coaching academy with me. And she has like an amazing future ahead of her. She's out of the shelter now. So all of this is to say, both that's an example of ways that you can be creative and to try to reach out and bring people in that maybe aren't your normal demographic or whatever. But also to debunk the misconception that people who maybe can't put up the money or aren't willing to financially commit aren't going to be fully committed to the program if they could find into it.
Yeah.
So there you go. Drop the mic.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, I feel like we got to wrap up. I could just keep going and going and going, but let's talk about how people can find you.
Yeah, so I make it super simple. So my name, I think is showing on the video, is Celia Ward-Wallace. And if you just literally put that into Google, you'll see like pages and pages of stuff that you can find me on. But the main thing is my website, CeliaWardWallace.com. Also, I have a fan page, business page on Facebook. I also have a free women's community on Facebook. It's called the Superfly Sisterhood. So if you search the Superfly Sisterhood and just put in a request to join, we'll add you to the group, and then you can be a part of the free community, and you can find out about any of the other programs and stuff when they come up. I'm really invested in like not being a super promotional kind of person. Not that sales and launching and promotion are not okay, because they are. And I think a lot of people who are spiritual entrepreneurs have an issue with that, of feeling like they don't want to promote, or they don't want to launch, or all these things. But if people don't know what you do, then they can't come, you can't have a business. So you got to be able to tell people. But all in all, our community is a non-promotional space. It's a space for literal sisterhood, where you can kind of just come and say, my life's falling apart, this is my issue, what can I do? Or I'm looking for a resource for this, what can I do? And we sort of talk about everything there. And and I'm in LA. Usually I do like a quarterly live women's night out event. I'm getting ready to go to Atlanta and do a women's night out there in October. So I'm around.
Awesome.
I'm not going anywhere.
Good. Okay. And we'll pop a link to your website in the text that comes with the video. So thank you so much for talking with me.
I know I really do think we just scratched the surface.
We did.
Some feedback. That's the other thing, is I love engaging. So I don't like a one-sided thing. I've done all, as an entrepreneur and as a coach, you get invited to do all these different things. So I've done keynote speeches, and I've done workshops, and I've written books. And my number one favorite thing to do is to be in discourse with multiple people, and to like almost like lead a group discussion. And that's why I love my courses, because they're big group classes. But it's great for you and I to talk. But I would really love to hear from anybody and everybody who's listening. Send me an email, send me a Facebook message, let me know either if you agreed or disagreed, or something we said sparked something in you, or if you have a resource that I should check out. I'm ever evolving, and I'm so interested in hearing what people have to say, and so that I can keep growing as well.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm just going to give a little wrap up here. Thanks so much for joining us for the Sacred Wheel Speaker Series. Again, I'm your host, Allison Carr. So if you want to know about future episodes of this video or podcast series, there's a couple ways you can find them. So one is my website, allisoncarr.net. There is a sign up link. You can get email notifications, or you can subscribe to the audio podcast on either iTunes or Google Play. So thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next month. Bye.